C plus Flutter. Interesting, right? Okay, so let's delve into it more. Okay, so one of the core stuff is misuse of platform features, right? You might be wondering, what is it? What is misuse of platform features? What is actually platform features, right? So there are like improper platform usage, which is very critical, right? One, let's say you misusing your platform features and security controls. Also, you exposing sensitive data and functionalities. All this stuff like makes your app vulnerable to attacks, right? An example is you kind of using over permission in your Dart project, in your Dart file, right? You kind of ignoring some task ID and local authentication, also insecure data storage. Yes, so let's say you kind of making your API keys like known in your platform, right? Let's say you know you are pushing live to production, you are deploying to your GitHub, right? You can include all these stuff in your .env file just to especially if your project is public, if let's say it's an open source project, right? It's very, very necessary. So what most developers don't really identify is common examples like you requesting like unnecessary permissions. Also, you kind of neglecting touch ID local authentications for sensitive actions and also strong confidential data, which is insecure like insecure locations like local storage, right? Yeah, so these stuff like should be looked up to if you are working on a project that requires like authentications and all that, right? Because this helps to control and also not to expose some sensitive data and functionality that wouldn't jeopardize your app security. Very, very, very important. Okay, so let's talk about some key protection strategies, right? Yeah, so to combat these threats, we can discard some permissions and also emphasize on the essential ones by clearly explaining their purpose, right? And for permissions, try as much as possible to request only the essential permissions needed for your app. You shouldn't kind of make like I don't know. There's this particular platform. I don't want to mention the name, but then you can see like there are too many permissions before even that also kind of makes your app a bit boring, right? Because people would hop on your app and they will now have to be accepting some unnecessary stuff like yes. Yes. So also you need to always kind of explain why each permission is required to gain user trust. Yeah. So if you need your users to kind of accept some permissions, you need to explain, right? Probably it could be like you can add it to your description and other right. Also, using libraries like permission handler to manage permissions effectively also helps a lot. Yeah. So with how to use touch ID or local authentication, you can make good use of the local auth, which is also good for securing authentication if it's appropriate though. And also you can implement some security measures like verification based on asymmetric keys for high risk situations, which I sometimes use it like based on some high risk scenarios and all that, but then it's actually optional as well. Okay, so let's talk about data security, right? And also how to stay up to date. Yeah, so we underscore the importance of secure data storage. So we advocating for keychain or key store and Flutter secure storage also helps you secure access. Finally, we can also emphasize on we staying up to date with the latest Flutter versions, library updates, and security guides because all these are kind of add-ons to we kind of updating security, right? Because most of the libraries are being rewritten, some are being updated, and other just to increase the security measures with some of the libraries so that your app doesn't really kind of become vulnerable, even let's say you use a package or a library in your Flutter project. Yeah, so this approach helps the user data. Also, it enhances the app functionality as well and fosters confidence with you and also with the person that will be using your platform, right? So it's really important to embrace this kind of security coding principles and helps you to create robust Flutter apps that stand the test of time. Very, very important. Yeah, so always don't always you must consider your SDK levels as well. For me, anytime Flutter stable is released, I take some time, probably like about 2 or 3 weeks before I actually update because I always want to understand whatever has been updated, like the updates and all that. And if it's essential, why not? Yes, I update, right? But then it's really important to always keep, like, always be up to date. But I realize some developers, I think they recently released Flutter 3.16, right? Um, for me, it took me about a week to actually go through everything just to understand what the updates are exactly about before I had to update, because meaning I would have to kind of update all my projects, right? Yes, though it is stressful a little bit sometimes, yeah, but then at least it's better than you downloading your projects and all that, right? Yeah, so it's really important to kind of stay up to date, and this also helps you kind of maintain your libraries regularly, and also to check your security guidelines regularly. Yeah. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. Yes, so the few stuffs over there. Right, yeah, so you kind of so the importance is really important, like the secure data storage. So some sensitive data like password tokens and financial information are right. You can literally kind of add them in your .env files, you can create your custom file to put it on git ignore, so that it's kind of doesn't be in production as well. Also, if your project is open source, then it's really important to be hiding these stuff, right? Yeah, so insecure data storage practice can expose this data to potential attacks and breaches, right? Which I made mention of earlier. So compromised data can lead to a very serious consequences for users. And if, let's say, you are working with a large corporation as a mobile app developer, and I don't know for each I don't know for companies privacy policy and all that, but then from where I work with Videobase, we are really keen on our security a lot, that which can easily be accessed by other apps or compromised by devices. Yes, and it's really important not to neglect your data encryption, both for interception and decryption as well. Yeah, so these are some of the major stuffs that are really kind of causing problems, right? Yeah, so I always love to encourage other mobile app developers like me to always prioritize data security and also adopt these recommendations to just reduce the risk of data breaches and build more secure and reliable Flutter apps out there. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so I don't know, so this is also another way of storing it. I know people have their ways of kind of writing some functions in order to store storage functionality provided by their respective iOS and Android platforms and as well. Yeah, so with the function, the next is more like an asynchronous function that takes two parameters, key and value. Then this function uses the right method of storage to securely store the value under the specified key, and the await key ensures that the function awaits for the right operation to complete before proceeding. Yeah, so in this context, like this code is crucial for addressing the risks of insecure data storage, and it's kind of sorry, so it's kind of demonstrates how to securely store sensitive data like user preferences, right, tokens and credentials, also reducing this also reducing the risks of data leakage or unauthorized access. Yeah, so this is one of the best approaches or making your app security to be compromised, right? Which affects user privacy as well. Okay. Yeah, so let's talk about authentication and authorization. Yes. They are clearly different. Right. Yeah, so authentication can be like determines who the user is actually on your platform, right? And authorization determines what the user is allowed to do after being authenticated. Yeah. So with some challenges that folks face, right? With authorization is kind of they not being able to efficiently manage user roles and permissions. Yes, also ensuring granular access control for resources and all that, like also handling and responding to unauthorized requests also. Yeah, so for the several role and permission before granting access to resources, right? Yes, and also you can use some libraries and frameworks like Firebase authentication, which I mean I use in most of my test apps. Some role permission. So, but then we mostly kind of build our own custom authentication of that. So we don't really follow Firebase. But then I love to use Firebase odds a lot. you might test apps, you might YouTube videos and all that. And I mean, it makes the process very smooth, right? Yeah, so you can utilize some access controls lists like ACLs to define some specific important. Okay, so let's talk about unauthorized request management and also strong authentication protocols as well. Yeah, so implementing a robust error handling to handle unauthorized requests gracefully really helps. Also, you kind of providing informative error messages to users without revealing this information, right? So you can probably maybe create a proper message and error without you kind of going too much, like without you being too technical, because most platform users are not really technical people, right? They just understand, oh, this and this and that. Yes, so your error messages should always be clear, right? If you are checking errors and kind of catching them to just display them, they should be very simple and understanding to the users. That will hop on your platform to use actually. Yes, and also for strong authentication protocols, right? Always make sure you secure your protocols like your ACPS for data transmissions. Also implement token based authentications for secure access control. I mean, depends on your app architecture, right, and your states as well. Which I wouldn't want to call it. If I talk about state management right now, who kind of I'll waste my whole day talking about that. And right now there are a lot of controversies in the right, but then choose what works like best for you, right, and choose what best architecture works best for you. I mean, anything that works best for you is and you think can run your platform perfectly fine, that's great. Yeah, so I wouldn't want to make mention of any architecture that helps you kind of make helps actually to kind of make your authorization very solid. No, I mean explore more and use what you think is best for you, for your team, your company. Right, so yes, so let's talk about code quality, right? Really important, right? Impact of code quality. Poorly written code can introduce security vulnerabilities. Like writing some functions well. Yeah, you kind of lacking some consistent code practices like create inconsistencies, right? Issues, right, in your consoles and all that, right? Yeah, because some tampering risks like it's likely your code or your platform can be jailbroken or rated devices can bypass app security measures, which you wouldn't want that to happen, right? So always consider using runtime integrity and verification to protect your app code. Very, 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 very important. Yeah. So I always kind of encourage developers to always write clean code, always well document their stuffs, and also make sure they avoid any vulnerabilities like SQL injection or cross-site scripting attacks. Yeah. Yeah. So I think this is probably like the last slide or so. It should be. But then let's talk about reverse engineering, right, and redundant features. So reverse engineering kind of involves disassembling the app's compiled code to understand its functionality and also exploit vulnerabilities, right? So I think one of the key things that people don't really look up to is kind of code authentication, right? Techniques like renaming variables, making functions more difficult for attackers to understand the code and its logic. It really helps, and also you kind of scrambling your app's code and sensitive data at runtime, making it harder to extract, right, or analyze, right. So always, and you can actually utilize. Oh, okay. So yeah, so you can always consider runtime encryption to protect sensitive data and logic, right? Which I made mention of already. Made mention of the kind of making sure your libraries are always up to date, your packages and all that, just to make sure like yeah. So you can explore, you can use this Flutter build APK, obfuscate, split debug, info debug, and this kind of like helps you eliminate all those stuffs, and also you get to see the debug info as well. I mean, you get to see everything in your console as well. So you should explore that. I've been using that a lot and helps to build my APKs, right? Okay, Yeah, so thank you guys